Hello and welcome once again to episode 41 of Code Completion. We are a group of iOS developers and educators hoping to share what we love most about development, Apple technology, and completing your code. My name is Dimitri and I'll be your host once again for this episode, and I'm joined today by my fellow completionists, Spencer.
Hey there.
Fernando.
Hello, hello.
And Paul.
Howdy.
So first of all, I'd like to go out and say that as of the day this recording will go live, we will have been recording for exactly 1 year. Yay!
Wow.
It's been many episodes, a few hiatuses as we've gone our stuff together, but we've continued, and we hope to continue for many years to come. I don't know what the future holds, but we'll try our best. So before we get into our main topic, it's time for Indie App Spotlight. Today we are checking out Tooth Fairy by Michael Tsai, a status bar app for your Mac that makes it easy to connect to your AirPods. Normally, connecting to AirPods on a Mac is a chore. You are never sure where audio will play from and have to dig through menus and screens to connect to them. Tooth Fairy solves this by giving you a button in your status bar that you can click anytime to instantly connect to your AirPods or any number of other Bluetooth devices like headsets, keyboards, and mice. Tooth Fairy costs just $5.99 on the Mac App Store, so please be sure to support Michael by getting Tooth Fairy. Are you an indie developer? We want to hear from you. We have no one left on our list other than repeats, so please reach out to us on Twitter at Code Completion via DM, and we can spotlight your app in the future as well. So what better way of staying productive than a confession? I am so bad at being productive and showing up motivated to work. I want to hear what all of your takes are on what you do to keep yourself productive and make sure that you do a good job doing what you do. So for instance, for myself, I go in 2-week cycles. I do 2 weeks of really good work, and then I totally don't want to work anymore, and I do 2 weeks of just reading. And then once I'm done reading for 2 weeks, I do 2 weeks of watching anime or something like that. And then the cycle continues, and I eventually get back to being very productive for another 2 weeks, but that's sometimes much later rather than sooner. So I want to hear what your perspectives are, not on my crazy strategy. That's not a viable strategy at all, but what do you do for yourself to kind of be the most productive developer you can be?
Well, it is viable for you, right?
It's been viable so far. I don't know how much longer, just like the podcast, I don't know how much longer I can keep it up this way, but so far so good. So Fernando, why don't you start us off?
Sure. It's really hard. I've tried many different ways of staying productive. Some are decent. It just ebbs and flows, just like you, Dimitri. Some of the things that I've tried, which have been useful, are basically using an app called Self-Control, which will block websites from your Mac. So I just have a list of websites, and even the most ridiculous websites, like news websites, like the Washington Post or things like that, I just basically block them, because if I have 10 minutes where I'm distracted, I'll just go and read the news and then read Wikipedia and then read whatever, just because I don't want to work. And so that helps sometimes. It really has helped me out when I want to detoxify from a YouTube high, because what'll usually happen, I am one of the 17 people that actually pays for YouTube Premium. I am very happy with it.
I recently threw in the $17 for the family thing on that. I watched no YouTube videos, but the few that I watched, the ads were driving me nuts because I don't have ads on anything else. And I'm like, why is there an ad every 5 minutes? Even when my wife is watching something, I hear her ads and those drive me nuts. So I'm like, I'm going to pay for this and remove this from my life. And I've been so happy since.
I've been debating that, but I haven't pulled the trigger.
Well,
I also have premium. It's way worth it.
It's way worth it. And in general, what I've seen in Twitter, and I personally will put my money where my mouth is, I will happily pay for the most toxic things. I would pay for, maybe Facebook is the one that's 100% off limits because of the democracy thing. But I would happily pay for any app or service that I use more than 5 minutes a day. to get rid of ads or tracking. Like I would happily. And I'm pretty sure YouTube is still tracking me, but the ads, just like Dimitri said, were driving me insane. And it's so cheap. I think it's worth it.
And it's like a waste of your life to listen to that many ads constantly.
Yes. Yeah. But then again, like I would go on a binge watching YouTube, whatever of like, I've been watching Terminator 2 clips. Like instead of watching the movie, I just try and find like contiguous clips. It's really fun. But then after a while, I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't worked. So I just block it and then detoxify for a few weeks. And then I don't need it. Like once I'm like in that frame of mind, I can get rid of it and watch one or two YouTube videos, go back. So that's one thing that's helped me a ton. Lately, this beauty, chess clock has been proven extremely effective. Like I'm very, very happy with it. So for those of you that don't know, the chess clock basically works in one simple way. The button up here, it indicates whether one clock is running and the other one is stopped, or vice versa. And so what I do is one of my clocks is my work clock and my other clock is my YouTube clock. So that's very simple. If I'm at like 2 hours of YouTube and 1 hour of work, flip the clock, start working. Yeah. It's been it's been eye-opening. Like I tweeted about it a while ago. The first week or so that I got it, I was at like 6 hours YouTube and then 3 hours or 4 hours worked. And I was like, oh my God, this is like seriously wrong. And so within a week, I was like totally the opposite. Like 6-7 hours work, 30 minutes, 1 hour YouTube. So it's been really cool. And now what I want to do is I want to try this. I started today and it's going okay. For every hour of work, I want to stop and I want to trade my YouTube clock for a work clock, like a workout clock. So I'll stop, do it like a 7-minute routine. I downloaded an app called 7 Minute 7. It's actually called 7, but it gives you 7-minute workouts. And so what I'm going to do is 1 hour work, toggle the clock, and then do a 7-minute workout and then come back and work. It worked today, but like I said, ebbs and flows. I don't know if it'll work later. I can keep going, but I'm really interested in both Spencer and Paul. What do you guys do for focusing and productivity?
There's a lot of moving parts for me. I think the key is getting sleep. So that's where devices can be really challenging.
Right.
Late at night, going on those YouTube binges or whatever. It can be really, it can make my nights longer than they need to be. So I do have 15-minute time limits on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. But sometimes I cheat and keep like requesting more time. So that's one thing that at least keeps me sort of aware of the time I'm spending. And another thing, my wife and I will sometimes ask each other, are you stuck? When we're like just on these binges of just sitting there face in a device. So just having that phrase sometimes can pull us out, or the other person can be like, hey, maybe you should go to bed now. So that I think can help with sleep. Exercise is pretty big for me. I find that my energy levels are like super all over the place, especially in the winter if I'm not exercising, like if I have an injury or something. Right. So I do a lot of running. Right now, like I feel great because I'm doing a lot of ultimate frisbee. Nice. So that helps. I've got 2 nights a week of frisbee on Monday and Tuesday, and so that's fun. It's a lot of sprinting and throwing and all kinds of sort of strategizing. And then in terms of productivity, it kind of ebbs and flows with how much I get done. Like I feel like I have to do a lot of research on certain things to sort of understand what to do. And then once I figure out, then I know what to do, and I'll use these little, I got the analog card that I'm trying out right now. So you basically have this like 5x3 card or whatever. and you just sort of fill out some tasks. So I'm experimenting with that. It came with this whole like little set, and I put that on my desk. Previously, I used a notebook, but this makes it a little bit more tangible, something I can put in my pocket if I need to go somewhere.
And what do
And then you
you
can
write?
different tasks. So some of these are work related, so I can't really share them.
Mm-hmm.
But you can mark a task if it's sort of something you want to work on. So, I mean, for my own personal app, I've got something that's been on here since April. I want to add saving support for brew coffee. That's still not in there. And then I have to update my timer app, which is sort of like your chess clock thing. I have a timer called Super Easy Timer that I use on my Mac when I'm like, I have to do this in a period of time. And so I'll set a 25-minute timer. And that's super nice for me. The other thing, I like taking notes in Markdown. So I've got multi-Markdown Composer as I'm working, and I'm just jotting stuff down. If I run into a bug, if I have a question, if I have a code snippet, if there's a terminal command that was useful, if there's like a Git workflow that I have to do with my team. So I've been working for GoPro and just trying to figure out like all the new tools I have to use and everything. So that's been fun. And then I think what makes me sort of more productive is once I understand the code base that I'm working on, because it's so big, I have to learn how to use the code and where I'm trying to focus in on. Then that sort of aligns me on what I need to research, and it's like Stack Overflow, Google, Stack Overflow, Google. I'll grab my iPad. I love reading documentation on my iPad when I'm doing research. So like if I'm stuck and it's like new code that I have to write, that's where I'll lay on the couch or in bed and just sort of research tons of links over and over. Just keep digging until you find something, or go to like a WWDC. So it's kind of all over the place. And then once I understand the problem, then I feel like sometimes the code just sort of clicks.
Yep.
Sometimes it takes being away from the problem, sleeping on it, going outside, multiple days.
Yeah.
So it's not always quick. And I don't know. Another problem I face in terms of productivity is getting like solid blocks of time to focus. If I don't have enough, I feel scatterbrained and I'm all over the place. So one other thing that I do to combat the scatterbrain monkey mind sort of thing is meditation. I find that it really helps me focus on like what I actually need to do versus, oh, this would be nice to look at, or this would be cool to research. So I use the Calm app, and I've just been going through, I think it's Jeff Walker's meditations right now. I think I did all of Tamara Levitt's meditations, and it's just repeating. So I switched it up, and I'm doing one of the other daily meditations that they have. And that is super helpful. And I find that sort of settles me. And the other thing I do after that is just some breath work where I'll count up to 10 and back down to 1 as I'm out breathing. So it actually makes it so that I can't think as much, which then gives me a little bit of peace of mind. And actually, like when I was doing that today, I was like, oh crap, there's that one chunk of code that I forgot to take out. So I think some of that's like useful. So that's kind of like a brain dump, I think, of everything I do. But I do find that like sleep and exercise and meditation to like start my day right can really help. If I don't do that, then I'm just all over the place. And if I haven't slept, I'm all over the place. I just want to eat everything and I don't want to focus. So
Eating everything is hard. Like, well, sorry, resisting the urge of eating everything, that's really hard. Uh, it's really funny that you mentioned it. I think all of your focus on keeping your body and mind like healthy really reminded me. I was watching a chess video lately. I've been doing a lot of chess videos on YouTube, And one of the quotes that the YouTube reviewer had was a Bobby Fischer quote that says, "Your body has to be in top condition. Your chest deteriorates as your body does. You cannot separate body from mind." And I think that it really stuck with me because programming is like that. Like, you really need to be well rested. You don't, if you have any cravings, like, oh, I need to get ice cream or something, it really gets into your mind and it stops your creative process. So it's really a very difficult endeavor in the sense that you have to take care of yourself first and take care of all the distractions, both external and internal. And once you're in that place, then you can code. So that's really hard. It really takes a lot of mental fortitude. And it really resonated with me having a 2-year-old, like the chunks of coding time. Like it used to be before I recently started at Basecamp and we have very few meetings. It used to be before that I would have like a 10 a.m. stand up, then Sylvia would have an 11 a.m. meeting, then I would have like a 12:30 meeting, and then I would get like an hour to code. And so that's the end of my morning where I have to like code 40 minutes, go and take care of my daughter, come back, code 30 minutes, go into a meeting. And it's just so frustrating. It's like I can't get anything done like that. So yeah, again, I would highly recommend the chest clock. It really helps out with like, oh my God, I've done 2 hours of continuous work and that feels great. Like even the small wins is like, yeah, I've earned another dollar. And you guys know I love my dollars.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that reminded me. I was doing the Pomodoro method where I would just tally on my notebook how many that I had gotten through. So if I knew exactly what task I was working on, that I would set a timer for 25 minutes and then just work. And then what's nice about that is the frame of mind is, okay, don't do anything else while that timer's going. Don't check YouTube, don't go research this API that doesn't really affect what you're trying to do, just write that code. So I found that helpful in the past. I'm kind of out of the habit right now of doing that because I don't know. I just haven't gotten back into that.
You know what I found frustrating about Pomodoro was that um, if I'm in the zone and then it's like, no, take a 5-minute break, like stop what you're doing. I'm like, but I want to keep going. And then I take the 5-minute break and then come back and it's like, so for a while it helped me, but it was a little bit more frustrating than it helped. So
I think if you record what you were last doing, if there's like something you wanted to finish up, jot down a note so that when you come back after that 5-minute break, you've got that frame of reference. I think that helps a lot. I do think there's a lot of value in taking a break because your subconscious mind is still thinking about things and it's going to start connecting things. Just like when I was meditating on the floor here, I all of a sudden realized, oh crap, I took that one chunk of code out, but there's still this thing that no longer applies because we changed how we're doing something. So you make those connections when you have time to breathe and sort of take a step back. So I think there's benefit. The other benefit that I really had was I didn't feel trashed at the end of the day if I was taking those breaks. If I just go, no breaks, and I'm not getting up in a regular, at least once an hour, like I physically feel trashed and like super worn out. But having those breaks, I think helps. And then taking that longer break after that, after doing 4 Pomodoros, definitely felt energizing. So that was kind of my experience with it. I guess I've been kind of lazy and trying to get back into it right now, but it is something that I found helpful.
It's so ironic that you mentioned getting good sleep helps you because it's probably an indicative problem of like my lifestyle in general. But when I get the smallest amount of sleep, that's when I get the most amount of work done. And the more sleep I get, the less like productive I am. I guess my body is using that time to like relax everything else. and when I'm not super anxious about getting something done. And that is not a healthy state to be in. I can definitely go ahead and say that. But I just wanted to throw that out there, that being sleep deprived actually does help me get a lot of work done. And I think the reason for that is like the anxiety of like you're so on edge whenever you're like sleep deprived that you can focus a little bit more on like something without getting distracted. And I think that's the part that's helping me, rather than actually being sleep deprived. That part is not helping whatsoever. But I do know a lot of people can get easily distracted, and finding a way that can help you focus on what you need to be doing, rather than be distracted by a million things, is going to help you the most in the long run, I think.
Yeah. There's instances where some sleep duration helps the next day when I've been working really hard on something and like I know the ins and outs of every API that I need to touch. And then it's just like, okay, I just need to go, 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 go. But usually I find it's not sustainable for multiple days. So it'll be like all day, like, I don't know if it was like 12 hours or whatever. And then I wake up and I'm like, okay, this is what I have to do now. I can crank that out. But I find that I don't have that type of focus if it's a long term, multiple days of not getting that sleep.
And I don't think it's necessarily like a short amount of sleep and a long amount of sleep.
Consistent sleep.
It's I wouldn't even say consistent. It's like in theory, I've never managed to do this consistently. In theory, if you go into like the 4 cycles of sleep, right? Light sleep and then REM sleep and whatever, and then another light sleep. In theory, if you can consistently wake up during your light sleep, you'll be rested regardless if you are like doing a short or a long time of sleep. Obviously, long is better, but I think that's it, Dimi. You should try it out. I've never found some way of reproducing it consistently, but that's what I've heard at least.
And Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So we were discussing what makes us the most productive and what can help keep us motivated while working. Spencer, what about you? What helps you keep the coding happening?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I'm not sure I feel like I have a great solution. I think a lot of what I do is, how would I say it, like patchwork at best, I suppose. So, for example, on the topic of sleep, I've been on this weird sleep cycle since college, and I haven't stopped. So I've been doing it for, I don't know, well over half a decade now, where I will take a nap after work or after school, right? So like come 6 o'clock my time, right after work, I take a nap for 2 hours or so. And then I go to bed at like 1 or 2. And I'm used to it at this point where it feels normal to me, but I get really tired after work. And, you know, I don't know if that helps me, but I think what it does allow me to do is kind of push through work. And then I know that I have like my nap and I know I can like chill out and kind of unwind. And after I wake up, I feel much better and I can like have a relaxing evening where I don't have to wait until the end of the day to kind of unwind, I suppose. I think a big thing for me, and I'm not sure I'm great at this, but one of the things that I've found helps me, especially when working from home where there are just more distractions, is trying to cultivate whatever gets you into that, like the zone or the flow state. So for me, what it is like mostly music. Like if I can find a good playlist or a good set of music that is both not it's like this weird mix of it's entertaining enough to my brain, but also not like noisy in the sense that it doesn't take me out of the zone, where it's not like competing for my attention, but I can kind of just have it as like background music, if that makes sense. So whatever that is, for you, if you like music, I know some of us just don't even listen to music, and that's totally cool. But that for me, kind of like I think it was Paul that was saying, it kind of helps limit how much you can think. And so I'm not thinking about other things. I can kind of have the background noise taking up part of my brain, and then the rest I can try to focus on the code itself. So for me, I think that's what helps the most. And I definitely will, go on YouTube breaks and just get my brain out of coding in general. But I think whatever I can do to cultivate that environment, whether it's music or like I have experimented with so many different monitor setups that in the last few years that I finally, I think, found something that is, I'm trying to figure out what is the least amount of friction while I work. I think that's the name of my game here. And so finding a display that has enough real estate to have everything up where I don't have to have windows kind of on top of each other helps me. And
So what's that display look like?
it's a 32 by 9 display, so it's basically two 27-inch displays put together side by side, but there's no like seam in the middle, and it behaves as one. I mean, in the past I had two ultra wide monitors. This is considered a super ultra wide. Like, I don't know. I really like it. I got it on a sweet deal, and that's the only reason I bought this one. But it's enough real estate where I can have easily two large Xcode windows open, if not also like Slack or my documentation. But it's also not like out of my field of vision, which is what two ultra wide monitors would do to me. So it was like a waste of space, if that makes sense.
I guess you could stack ultra wides, right? You have one on top of the other.
Yeah, I think at that point, then it just becomes like the same aspect ratio as just like, a 60-inch TV in front of you or something.
And then you're in the
But
back
with lots of
is the
pixels.
problem, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't have a great answer. And, as far as like my own personal projects go, that's where the productivity and motivation goes out the window, because lately I haven't worked on any of my personal projects other than, a few hours, maybe once a month or something. I think it's a lot of my kind of mental energy is just spent on work coding rather than my own thing, because I know I'm making a living off of it. And honestly, my own apps haven't brought me a ton of money, which is fine. And so I think, less motivated to work on them as opposed to supporting my own lifestyle, which is my job. So how about yourself, Ben?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that I was late to this podcast shows that I definitely need to work on having a better system. So I've noticed that lately it seems like in order to be able to to get stuff done, I basically need to be reminded that I need to get stuff done. It doesn't seem to stick in my brain that well. So I've been concentrating on making more calendar events and reminders, stuff like that, just to kind of keep track of what's what. I of course forgot to do that for this show, which is why I was late. But anyway, I'm here now, so I guess that's the important part. As far as like how to get into the flow state, how to get stuff done in my day job as a developer, I would say that it is a little different now than it was when I was sort of only a dev. So I'm the director of mobile engineering, which basically means I have a team of people, of developers that work with me, building mobile apps for both iOS and Android. And while I do still code a decent amount in iOS on one of our main products, I am also kind of in charge of the team and managing their tasks and sort of managing the products that we make, both on the iOS side and the Android side. And I'm not an Android developer, but we've got some really great people on that team who are. So I don't have to know sort of the super nitty gritty, but I still have to understand the basic landscape of what it is that we're trying to do on both sides. So even if I were to get really, really focused, a meeting or a request from marketing or, some kind of thing would come into my sort of, sphere, and then I would have to go do that thing, or I'd have to go respond to that, and I would jump out. So these days, probably, I don't know, I probably have like an hour or two a day where I feel like I can, like when it's a good day, when I'm not that distracted by other things, I can probably get like a couple hours in of coding. and then there are other days where I don't open Xcode. Well, I mean, Xcode's open all the time, but I don't go into Xcode and do anything at all the entire day because I'm doing a bunch of other stuff. So it's definitely a little bit of a different deal, a different situation. And it sounds like we may be adding more people, more mobile people to the team, more iOS and Android developers. So it's possible that my day job coding days are numbered, at least, at this job. I'm still going to code, of course, and I do personal stuff, but it may become even less and less the further down we get. But as far as like strategies, I would say sounds like similar to what Paul and Spencer, what you guys said. I have two monitors. So I have a iMac, a 27-inch iMac, and I have a 4K display sitting next to it. So I try and concentrate on keeping my main work in front of me, which is the iMac. So Xcode, if I'm in Sketch or Figma, some kind of design program. Also, the iMac screen is just nicer, so I try and keep like the high definition, high resolution stuff on that screen as well. And then the other screen is relegated to things like Slack, and we actually use Slack and Teams at my job. So I have Slack and Teams open. I've got my music playing over on that side. I've got Apple Music going, stuff like that. And I find some people say that they can't listen to music if it has words in it when they're coding. That doesn't seem to be the differentiator for me. It just sort of seems to be usually if I've heard it before. So like I can't really listen to new music if I'm coding because it's too like, what's that, right? Like, it's too like interesting. So it has to be something I've heard many, many, many times. And so that's kind of how I listen to music anyway. So it doesn't really bother me, but yeah, so I kind of get on like a soundtrack gig sometimes where I'll listen to soundtracks because they're interesting, but also have no words and are fairly backgroundable, like in my brain. So those are good. But yeah, I can kind of listen to any, more or less any music. And
Do you have a
as long
soundtrack that is your go-to?
So I really, now that you said that, I was trying to think of one, and I'm just going to call up Apple Music and I'll just say what it is. I'll look it up because I have a playlist for them. But
I listen to all the Batman from Christopher Nolan.
Yep, the Batman ones are really good. Yeah. So Paul Leonard Morgan does some cool stuff. He's a composer. He did the soundtrack for Cyberpunk 2077, which is a video game, but the soundtrack to it is really cool. There's also the Faster Than Light game, which has a whole soundtrack that is fairly innocuous and useful. I'm also a big fan of Thomas Newman. He's another composer. So just to write off a couple movies, American Beauty, Aaron Brockovich, Skyfall, Spectre, so the two latest movies, James Bond movies, and then actually the Passengers soundtrack is really good by him. It's the movie with Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence in it. Movie was good. It wasn't like amazing, but it was a good movie. But the soundtrack is actually really good, and for whatever reason, very conducive to coding. I don't know why, but it works. It works for me. So yeah, so that one works. Other than that, just kind of trying to, as far as like getting in a good state, I try to kind of keep it fresh in the sense that I try to look for new ways to solve problems so that I don't end up just kind of writing the same boilerplate code over and over and over again. I feel like in our industry in particular, it can get really repetitive to be like, well, I need another network manager thing to talk to an API to pull down JSON and decode it and then put it into a model and then store it in core data, right? Like we do that kind of stuff all day long. So I try and like find better ways to do that. And I think that helps me stay more engaged by, just learning new ways to do things. So like, for example, I haven't even looked at it yet, but I've got like 3 or 4 articles pulled up in my browser that I want to get into maybe tomorrow or early next week for combining. I'm going to make that word up for taking core data work and funneling it through Combine so that you can get publishers basically of data that comes out of core data, so that you can get away from kind of the imperative style of fetching data from core data instead using it with publishers. So that's looks interesting. We'll see how far I get with it, but that's something that I'm kind of looking forward to doing. And I feel like jumping into that, reading those, and then like trying to take those ideas and bring them into the product that I'm working on and see if I can incorporate them, gives me kind of new excitement for the code that I've already looked at a million times, and can kind of energize me and be like, yeah, okay, I'm good to go to spend a few hours today really digging into this, and it doesn't even feel it doesn't feel long. Like it's like, oh crap, I've spent 4 hours on this. It kind of rushes by because I'm really engaged, and I find that that's definitely when I do my best work, when I can look up at the clock and realize that it's lunchtime, and it's like, wasn't it just breakfast? So that's what I try and do, is just look for new ways to do maybe things that I already know how to do.
Yeah, and that's when you know you're really in the flow of getting some good work done, is when the day is done before you know it. Yeah. And even better is when the year is done before you know it. Like, thankfully, I was kept very busy during all of 2020, and I hardly felt 2020 go by. And that's for better or for worse. But having some good productivity and some good productive days really gets things moving quickly, and makes it easy to see the progress that you're doing as well, because that's kind of still fresh in your mind as you plowed through it and you didn't even realize much time went through.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to point out, I know like basically all of you listen to music while you code, right?
Sometimes, not all the time.
So I know there's other people like me out there. I know you must exist. I cannot listen to anything when I'm concentrating on something. I basically will turn everything off, make things as quiet as possible, and that's when I can concentrate the most, because I'm basically like having a conversation with myself, trying to solve a problem. And if there's other things going on, that's just a distraction towards like hearing myself. I can't clearly hear myself in a way. And I just wanted to point out that I'm sure there's other people like that out there. You're not alone, even though we are probably the minority. But that is a thing. We do exist. So just throwing that out there for those.
I think
of
that's
you that
really
have always
interesting.
felt.
I've heard people that can listen to podcasts and code, which I find insane.
Oh no!
that you
No
can
I
way.
can
do that.
listen. I can listen to podcasts when I don't want to get work done. And
Yeah,
that
right,
is totally doable, but not when like solving problems.
I-
Everything just turns off.
I'll say as a counter to you, Dimitri. So I think part of the reason why music works for me is because, especially like if it's well trodden, right? If I've listened to it a million times, so it's not, I'm not going to hear anything new, right? Is that it actually distracts me just enough so that I can concentrate, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like it does just enough to, like, I'll hear it sometime. Like, because the thing is, if I'm really in flow, I'm like, did that song already finish? I didn't even hear it because I was so concentrated. And I think, whereas if the room were still and quiet, my brain would be like so busy doing so many other things that I would never be able to actually concentrate on the code. So I think, which is weird that you need a distraction in order to concentrate, but that's just, that's what works for
That's how
me.
it is.
For me, it's like it's a distraction that I have control over, where even
Yes.
as we're recording this podcast, I'm hearing dogs barking outside, and every morning there's construction going on behind my house. So for me, it's a way of controlling what the distraction is, and it's one that
Yes.
is like less distracting than another, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna say two things. It's I read somewhere that it's actually a way to make you hallucinate if you like cover your eyes complete, like in total darkness, and then plug something into your ears so that you don't hear anything, and your brain detects the lack of sound and visual like things, that it starts hallucinating. It needs input. So it makes perfect sense when you say, Ben, like, I need just a tiny bit of distraction, like enough so that my brain's like busy with something, and then like your subconscious takes over and starts.
Yeah,
going
I need like the background task to be like busy so that I can keep the main thread focused on what I'm actually trying to get done.
exactly. And I was gonna say, Dimi, I think it's kind of like that joke where you're like driving with your music and you're having fun, but then you're lost and you need to focus and you turn the volume down. Like I'm more or less like that, and I can see how you could be all the way like, no, I need to completely focus on this.
Yeah.
Because like it happened to me yesterday. I was like coding, grooving, and then I hit a snag. I was like, oh, now the music's annoying. Like,
Exactly.
just turn the volume down and let me focus on this, and then I can go back to my distraction and coding groove. So yeah, I can relate a little bit with both of you.
It's interesting you said like when you block out all inputs, like you start hallucinating. We're almost like random number generators. We need a seed to kind of get that creativity
Yes.
flowing. So whether it's music is being transformed into for loops, like that's how our brains work. So you just need that little bit of inspiration to go down that rabbit hole. Otherwise, like how else do we function, right? So
Well, I was
Just
going to
thought of
ask you,
that.
like, what do you do with Lynn? Like, does she listen to music, or are you like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be coding. I need silence in the room.
You got to leave the house. Like,
Yeah. Do you have a red light outside your room? How
No,
do you,
so
how do you
she-
deal with it?
she's pretty similar. She codes in silence, and that works well for both of us.
So there's
thankfully.
literally two of you.
that's good
Not
though.
even
That's good that you
dozens.
have the same like pattern. Because if you had like opposing patterns, that would just be.
Well, that's where
Yes.
noise canceling headphones come in, right?
No,
Well,
it's
that's
not
true.
enough. Like
Not
when I I was lucky enough that we built a new house recently, and we literally designed like my office and Sylvia's office to be like on completely opposite ends. Because even when I have headphones, singing helps me focus. So I would be singing, and Sylvia's like, "I can
So
hear
you're the
you over
obnoxious
my
one.
noise canceling headphones," and I'd be like, oh, "Okay, yeah, right, yeah." Or I'd be whistling. I'm like very like, yeah, I need my distractions when I'm coding. So yeah, you're lucky.
Talking about like things that help you concentrate. One thing I do constantly is walk in circles, and I know that drives people nuts. Like anyone who's looking at you, and you're just like walking in circles, like going nowhere. But just the act of doing that helps me clear my mind.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
just like you said, singing helps you get into the mood of things. You're not like concentrating on singing. You put that on autopilot, but it helps you like categorize your thoughts. That's me on autopilot. I don't even realize I'm walking in circles, driving everyone nuts, but I will do that on the phone when I'm thinking about something. I will just start going in circles. And
I was going to ask you if you did it on the phone. I don't really do it when I'm just thinking, but I pace. If I'm on the phone with someone, I'm not
Same.
sitting down. I pace for I don't even know why. Like I don't know. I don't. Even,
you don't know what to do with the rest of yourself.
yeah, I just yeah. I guess yeah.
Yep. Humans are weird, man.
So it sounds like Dimitri. What are your other than absolute silence? What are your other things that you need to get stuff done?
It's a lot like Paul said. So I work on a lot of having done a lot of research first. Like I can't just sit down and do something. I can, but I tend to tackle problems that are a lot more difficult. And because of that, I want to really get a good understanding of what I'm doing before I jump in and do it like wrong 3-4 times before getting it right. So I will spend a lot of time researching something first. And in that process, I tend to learn about a lot of other things, which is in itself distracting. So as a benefit of that, I'm prepared for those problems the next time they come up. Like I have that index nice and warm, that cache spot nice and warm and ready to go for when I need it. So if you are able to kind of keep a lot of stuff in mind, then I definitely recommend researching a lot, because you can really categorize your thoughts that way. Whether you do it with pencil and paper, or whether you have a lot of windows open, like I'm notorious for having hundreds of Safari windows open of like my scattered brain. And it helps me because when I come across that window, I'm instantly reminded of that thing.
Right.
And I'm instantly reminded of all the other things I've researched in the meantime. And that kind of collects all the thoughts in one go. And I find that super useful. What I don't find super useful is when the computer does not keep up with me. So if you do have the
my
means,
God.
if you do have the means, get something that can keep up with how you work, because that's so important for being a developer. Like, we are spending all our time thinking and using our brain, and you probably are blinded by how much energy that consumes. I was reminded of this time and time again watching Lynn like step into the world of software development and being dead tired at the end of the day because she was not used to thinking so much. Like, you don't realize how much you're thinking, how much you're categorizing, how much you're contemplating different ideas when you're coding, that it can really take a lot of energy. And like, I'm talking about a lot of caloric input. Like, don't decide to go on a no calorie diet as a developer. You are going to injure yourself. No, seriously. I remember reading a story about someone whose job was to find exploits, and they would get into such highs of like going through and solving stuff over like a small amount of time that they eventually ate up all the glucose levels in their brain to the point where they invoked a stroke, to the point like of just thinking so much and not boosting that back up regularly. So if you are doing a lot of development, like, take care of yourself for real. Don't deprive yourself of anything. To like, don't get round either. But like, keep it. Don't lose too much weight without like building it back up, because you really need that. Your brain really needs the calories more than anything. Like, our brain can only work off of glucose. Can't work off fat. Can't work off proteins. Just glucose. The rest of you can work off anything. If you need your brain to do
I might
something,
disagree a little bit, but it's so I do intermittent fasting, and I find I can get massive boosts of productivity when I'm not eating. So I think it depends on how your body's adapted to what you're doing. It's not like I'm not eating later on in the day, but I'm just not eating now. I'm not eating breakfast or something like that. And like, your body can convert, it can learn to convert, because it does this when there's no food, your fat into glucose.
Glycolysis,
well,
right?
So there's a way, but
Yeah.
if you're not used to it, then you're going to just feel this crash, and it's going to feel awful.
yeah.
Both
Like,
of you are
your
correct.
muscles will do that. It will save the glucose that's in your blood, and it will basically burn the fat. But your brain has
No.
to have glucose.
No, what Paul is saying is a process where your fat is transformed into glucose.
Yeah, it's not a very effective method. Like,
It is-
dogs
it-
can do this very
no,
effectively. We
I
cannot.
disagree. It is very effective. It's just very difficult to get there. Paul probably knows a little
Efficient
bit more.
is effective was the wrong word. Efficient.
It is.
Like,
It is
it's
very efficient. No, it is very efficient. That's the point. So, like, I think again, Paul, I think knows a little bit more than me. But what I have read is that your body either transforms carbs into glucose very easily, or if you have a very, very low amount of carbohydrates for more than 2 weeks, your body will be like, for the first 2 weeks, your body will be like, please stop killing me, because it'll go very low on glucose. But after those 2 weeks, your body will be like, fine, whatever. And it'll start turning the fat into glucose. And it is very efficient, but it is a very difficult diet, because you have to only eat mostly fats, mostly proteins, and very, very little carbs.
Yeah.
But it is a legit diet that's really good for your body. It is actually used to prevent seizures. Like, if you go very strict with it, that is a superset of the Atkins diet, I think it's called. It is very efficient, but it is not nice, and it is very difficult to maintain.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not an easy thing, but there's always loopholes. Like, there's like, yeah. So I definitely think, like, sometimes if I've tried the fasting stuff, like, I'm not very good at this, and I feel like crap, and then it's like I have like some fruit or something, and then I feel instantly better. So I've been on like both sides of, like, I have this awesome energy high and I'm very focused, and then I've had the other situation where, oh man, I just have no energy, and it's because my body's not adapted to that.
Yep.
that. And so you just feel like exactly how you were describing it. So yeah, but we could talk forever about that.
I think what's important, and we all agree, is that you cannot separate. Like, that's why I brought the quote. You cannot separate the body from the mind.
Right.
If, like Dimitri's saying, like, you don't take care of your body with in whatever way you need, like, you're going to suffer. You may even like lead yourself to like a very dangerous path. So you need to take care of your body. And that's super important. It really, there's an anecdote that I wanted to share, which is in one of the Warcraft books that I read, basic fantasy books. One of the scenes that I remember is of that one of a wizard who, after like a battle of some sorts, teleports back to safety, and then she starts like walking and almost faints. And she's like, "Why am I like this? Like I'm safe. I'm physically unharmed." But it's like she'd spend most of her energy like doing spells, researching, reading, that she forgot to eat. She hadn't eaten in like 24 or 48 hours. And that scene is just so, like, I have it right here because it's programming. We always joke programming is magic, but it's the same thing. If you're into this problem and you're like going in and out, should I fix it this way, that way? Like, you forget things. It's just, it's an amazing feeling, but at the same
Your
time,
day
it's
is
a
gone
dangerous
before
thing.
you realize.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Something that I guess, well, it surprised me after kind of experiencing it, but then it made sense once I thought about it. Was that getting into teaching was the same thing. Like, in particular, in my first experience teaching, I taught in person at a school, and so I spent my work day I went to campus and I taught for 3 hours in the morning in front of a live class of students. And that was very intense. I had to prepare the lesson. It was we took a break, but like it was like 3 hours of depending on where we were, very intense, instruction. And then we'd take a break for lunch and we'd come back. And then for like 4 hours in the afternoon, my job really consisted of like looking at assignments and, sort of light teacher duties. But for the most part, my job was sitting on a couch and having a like line of students walk up to me and ask me questions about their homework assignment they were working on. And I told them, like, in order to get your maximum value for your money, you probably want to come ask me questions. Like, this is literally what you're paying me to be here for, is to be available, right? And it sounds awesome, right? It's like I could just spend the whole afternoon just hanging out on campus, like chilling and talking to people and just having fun. It's like, that's what it sounds like. And that is, to be fair, what it was like that in many ways in some cases. But there were other times where it was just super busy and students just had just a mountain of questions. And what you don't realize is somebody coming up to you and asking you a question and you spend 3 minutes helping them and then they walk away. If that happens once, you're like, well, whatever, it's fine, right? If that happens to you all afternoon, what ends up happening is I took at this time in my career, I was taking the train to get home. And so like I'd get on the train and I would like take a breath. I'd be like, why am I so tired? And also I have no idea what I'm going to have for dinner, and I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm so over making decisions at this point because I've basically made decisions for other people all afternoon, right? Like all my decision making power has gone to zero, and my sort of thinking ability has gone to zero, and I just want to like zone out for the rest of the night. And what I sort of had to learn was that it was, for one thing, it was important to not take the later train, to have a boundary. Like 5 o'clock is the train comes at like 5:10. It's like, so I would tell my students like, okay, it's 4:50. You have 10 minutes to ask me questions, and otherwise you're following me to the train station. Like I am not missing this train, and the reason is because there's another one in another half an hour, but like I have to protect sort of my ability to recharge because tomorrow we have to come back and do this all over again, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that was true in teaching, that's true in coding, that's true in any kind of, I would say like mostly intellectual job, is that you have to protect your ability to make decisions tomorrow, because if you use up all of that energy today, there may not be any left for you to do it tomorrow. And And the students are not gonna be like, well, whatever, it's fine. We can just have like a day. I mean, I'm sure they'd be happy to have a day where we didn't do anything, but we didn't have time for that. Like it was a boot camp, right? We have to move on to the next thing. So, and the same thing is true with software, right? You gotta ship so you can ship again, right? You gotta people like your company expects you to be productive, so you can't just be like, well, I just unless you want to take the day off, you have to come and be productive, right? So protecting your energy, I think, is another thing that I would probably add to my list of like something to keep in mind to let you be in the flow state tomorrow. You have to maybe stop a little earlier today than perhaps you would want to, or perhaps you think you need to, because you got to leave a little in reserve for the next day.
And I'll sometimes document like what my energy level is on a scale of like 1 to 10 of like how I'm feeling, just so I have a reference point.
That's a good idea.
That helps me sort of be mindful of my energy levels.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. Paul, you're goldmine. Both the "Are you stuck?" comment and that one, I'm gonna start doing both of them. Like I'm gonna write down my energy levels every morning on the clock. It'll be easy.
Yeah,
that's a really good idea.
Fernando, didn't you do didn't you steal the chess clock thing from someone on Twitter?
I spoke about it before you got here.
Okay, I will listen to the beginning of the podcast.
What?
I said I'll go back and listen to the beginning when we're done.
Yeah, it's such a good idea. I cannot recommend it enough.
Can recommend? Awesome.
This week's episode of Code Completion is once again brought to you by Voyage. Voyage is a full-stack iOS application development course from Johnny B. With this course, you'll learn how to build both a full iOS client app and an associated React web administration application. The app and the site will integrate with Firebase as well as Stripe and Plaid for payment processing. Bon Voyage is a place to book extravagant vacations, and you'll gain the skills to build the iOS app from the ground up and integrate everything you need to provide a world-class vacation booking experience. To find out more and sign up for the course, visit Bon Voyage, that's BON-VOYAGEAGE.app/course, and be sure to follow Bon Voyage's instructor, Johnny B. Codes, that's at JONNYBCODES, on Twitter to stay up to date with all his courses. Thanks again to Bon Voyage e-commerce app course for sponsoring Code Completion. Now that we've gone through our topics, it's time for Complete the Code, where we quiz our listeners on your knowledge of Swift, Apple, and all things development. Spencer?
Yep. So we had many people write in these past 2 weeks to point out that the answer was clearly just to stick .lazy in front of the chain of operations, and that would make all our problems go away. Now, without lazy, each operation would require a fresh pass through all the items, which is not efficient, and lazy does get around that, so they were almost right. Nico Brown gets half a point for suggesting to sidestep the issue completely with a for loop and to do it in one pass, likely making much more complicated code in the process. We do have a proper winner this week, though, and that is Chris Downey. He correctly noticed that adding .lazy to the chain no longer returns an array, but a lazy map sequence. So all you need to do then is wrap the entire expression in an array initializer, and array will run efficiently through the original items only once and fill in a pre-allocated array with the results. If you don't do this, every time you use the results variable, you will need to recompute everything, which is clearly not ideal. So this week, we have an Objective-C question for you. So if you're listening to the podcast, you can check the podcast art as always, or the show notes to follow along. First, we declare an NS error called the error. Then we call a method on an object called do something that can fail with error, passing in the error. That returns a result as a bool. Finally, we check to make sure the error is non-nil and log that the operation failed. What could potentially go wrong with this particular error handling code?
So can you complete the code? Tweet your answers to us with hashtag CompleteTheCode, all one word. The first to get it right will get a shout out on next week's show. So finally, we have compiler error, my favorite segment where I get to terrorize everyone. So let's go ahead.
Quiz my fellow code completionists.
No, he's past the charade.
He knows.
It's no longer
we all know
happy
what it is.
times. So since this is 1 year of code completion, I figured I'd go through past compiler errors and dig up ones that would come from the first few episodes, and see if you remember any of the problematic ones. So these are straight statements out of past episodes. So let's go through them one at a time. The first one, and this one is from episode 9, is about Swift literals. Although dictionaries prohibit it, expressible by dictionary literal allows for multiple entries with the same key. Number 2, this was from episode 5 about Emacs key bindings in Cocoa. You may know of the command backspace or delete command to delete the entire line to the left of the text cursor, but Control K can be used to delete the line to the right of the text cursor. Statement number 3. This was from episode 4. So we have Objective-C method names in the iOS SDK. So convolve with destination, temp buffer, source offset to region of interest X, source offset to region of interest Y, kernel, kernel height, kernel width, divisor, background color options is one of many related Objective-C methods in the Accelerate framework for manipulating images. And finally, statement number 4. This was from episode 1 about Unicode names for Mac modifier keys. And we have located between the control and the command keys on the keyboard. The option key is unoriginally called option key in the Unicode specification, but was also once known as the closed Apple key on Apple II series computers. So these are all from the past. So Fernando, why don't you go first?
Well, I would be surprised if they were from the future.
That is not helping.
He's just stalling. That's
I'm
He's the one with
stalling
limited
'cause
time.
I have no idea. I remember option number 2. If it is the exact option, I think that one is correct. So I'll say that one is correct, and I'll ignore it. Number 3 sounds very Objective-C. So I like number 3. So it's either number 4 or number 1. I don't think you can allow multiple entries with the same key unless they're like packed in an array. But I also could believe that the key is named closed Apple key. So you did a great job because all 4 of them look like relatively
plausible.
Yes. The Alt K, I think it was something else. So I'm gonna say number 2. I was very confident, but then I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. I'm going with number 2. Final answer.
An excellent choice. Paul?
So I forget the rules. I'm just picking which one's the real one.
which one's
No,
false.
so one of these
False.
is fake,
Yes.
completely fabricated by me. The other
Got
are
it.
all true.
It's like 2 truths and a lie, except less fun.
For you.
Yeah, for us.
The co-evolve sounds like something I've used in the Accelerate framework when I was doing some signal processing. So I kind of think that one's true. I've definitely deleted lines in Xcode, but I don't remember what my fingers do. And I don't know if I have the Emacs key binding on. So is
So
this, when you say
those are
Cocoa, are you
default-
talking Xcode?
No, so these are default key bindings that work in any Cocoa NS text editing thing, unless you change them.
Oh, well, I have no idea then about that. You put me on a keyboard, I can figure it out. I'm just trying to think. Outside of the keyboard, my brain doesn't know. My fingers know. I'm using like delete keys and VI a lot, but that's not this.
If it helps, Fernando has a horrible track record, so.
Yeah. The first one
But
doesn't
the
make
ones I
sense to
win
me,
are the best.
They are.
It's true.
and I have no idea on the last one. So I don't like the first one, so I'm gonna say that one's not true.
An equally excellent choice. Ben?
Well, for the sake of comedy, I will say that the fact that these are all choices that were made in previous, that were shown in previous episodes does nothing for me because I don't remember any of them. And I will also say that I just hate Emacs. So I'm gonna just assume that's true because I don't know anything about Emacs, and I choose not to learn anything about Emacs because it is evil. I'm VI all the way. So we're just gonna assume that 2 is true. 3 sounds exactly like the kind of nonsense that would appear in a method call for Objective-C. It is a paragraph in and of itself before you even added the actual arguments, so it sounds perfect. So really we're down to 1 or 4. I feel like 1 is wrong, but this esoteric
We went over this before, Ben, literally.
thing. I know, but I feel like I'm just gonna, just for the sake of variety, I'm gonna say that this is very likely wrong, but that 4 is the incorrect one. The closed Apple key thing. I don't know though. Like it does sound like option key is definitely what they would call that because it's very boring and straightforward. I'm going with 4. Final answer.
Excellent choice. Spencer?
Yeah,
They've all been excellent. Have you
I
noticed
don't
they've
know.
all been excellent? Anyone?
He said equally excellent, which
Equally
is
excellent. Yeah.
That's
He's
a
just
little
trolling us at this
suspicious
point.
I'm gonna go with 4 as well because I think it would not be called the option key. I think it would be called alternate, the alternate key or alt. And really the only reason I think that is because I've been working a lot with UI key commands, and the way that you do the modifier for the option key is called alternate. So I would kind of assume that it's maybe following like the Unicode spec. I don't know. So we'll go with that.
An excellent choice as well. So let's go and take these in most popular first, since that's where my shade thing is. So number 4, Ben and Spencer, you believe this one is fake for different reasons. Ben, because you're speculative of everything that I do and was hoping to get a leg up, and Spencer for maybe good reasons.
Sounds about right.
So the Unicode name for the option key character, so that little switch thing, is called option key. Dang it. And on old Apple keyboards, you used to have 2 Apple logos. One was hollow, one was filled, and it was indeed the closed Apple key, which was option. So this one is completely true. So that's half of you stricken out.
You led me astray, Spencer, after the fact. How dare you?
Wait a minute.
To be fair, it was episode 1, our horrible audio episode. So
Right.
I don't.
I'll blame it on that.
I didn't expect a lot of people to catch on with that. Number 1, Paul, you think this one is there's an issue with this one, and expressible by dictionary literal is you can put a bracket, key, colon, value. It does not require that there are unique keys, so you can go ahead and do crazy stuff with your own types, but dictionaries do require that there are unique keys. So the dictionary literal itself does not require unique keys. So that's a fun fact if you're making weird APIs. So sorry, Paul. Going on to number 2, Fernando.
I am so angry
because he went and tried it. He went and tried it on a keyboard. So this one's the easiest one. You can just type a slab of text, put your cursor in the middle of it, and Control K, and it will delete everything to the right. In fact, it will go ahead and put it in a second clipboard, which you can command Control Y and yank it somewhere. So this is the kill command, and then you have the yank command. So it serves dual purpose. And that was the same thing I tricked everyone with last time too, because I had 2 statements.
And I remember going literally the exact same thing I did. I opened up a Twitter, like the Twitter webpage, and I tweeted. I was about to tweet something, pressed like, what is it? Shift Alt K?
Shift Alt.
No. What's it, like the caret?
Control
K. And it deleted everything, and I was like, oh, okay. I got confused because I remember there was a clipboard shortcut, but it just so happens it's the same thing. Oh my god, I'm so angry.
Yay, Emacs. So that brings us to number 3. So why do you think this one's wrong? Was I mean and inserted an extra argument?
No,
Background color.
it's macOS only.
No. So the Accelerate framework is a C-based framework, not an Objective-C framework. So there's no Objective-C method with this. There is a horrendous C.
There's a C
method,
function
or
looks like this, though?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So good job to me, I guess.
So I wrapped my Accelerate framework in Objective-C.
That would help you remember differently.
So in Paul's world, this method does exist.
Exactly.
Maybe.
Oh, not quite, but like I was writing Objective-C code and invoking it, and then
Yeah.
I don't know. So
Well, you can take satisfaction that you tricked us twice with these,
Same
hints.
question.
In
So
the
same
1 year
questions.
episode.
for the first one, you're saying that you can do it, but what is the expected behavior?
You would get an array of tuples.
Neat.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
That's just what you get. It's cool.
Got
So
it.
yeah. Like, better luck next year, I guess. We'll do this again. You know what to expect, I guess.
But is it true that that a tuple is a multiple entry? No, I don't want to discuss this.
You've already lost interest.
So as always, I want to personally thank everyone for listening in this week. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Code Completion to know when new episodes get released, and feel free to tweet at us if there is a topic you'd like for us to dig into. Most importantly, as a small podcast, please be sure to share this with your friends and family who are also interested in any part of the process of app development. It's your support that enables us to continue doing this, and we hope to grow a healthy community around everything we discuss. Once again, I want to give my thanks to Spencer, who is at Spencer C. Curtis, that's SpencerCurtis on Twitter. Ben, who is at Ferris Guy, that's FerrousGuy on Twitter. Fernando, who is at From Junior to Senior, that's FromJRTOSR on Twitter. And Paul, who is at Paul Solt, that's PaulSolt on Twitter, for joining me this week. My name, once again, is Dimitri, and you can find me at Dimitri Buñol, that's DimitriBouniol, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
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 See you later.